The September 3rd meeting of the Glenville Town Board, please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Please join me in prayer. Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance tonight. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilman Martin?
Here.
Councilman Giovanni?
Here.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Here.
Councilwoman Rosbowski? Here. Supervisor Kensley?
Here. We have a fairly busy evening tonight. You will see the agendas up front on the table. Before we get into the town council reports, I just want to make some quick amendments to the agenda so everyone's aware of where we are. We do have an add-on on the agenda. It will be add-on 1. It will go after item 13. The add-on on the agenda deals with the appointment of a real property appraisal technician. That will be added after item number 13. We also have our first in the 2 series of budget hearings with department heads tonight. That will go on after item 14, new business. We'll start our budget hearings, and we have some of the department heads here tonight to present their budget proposals for the 2015 budget. And then we have an executive session that we will go into briefly to discuss a personnel matter. We will not conduct, or do not anticipate conducting business after that, so you're free to stay if you'd like to go in the other room. We come out, we will probably gavel out of session. There's really no reason to stay for that. There is one more announcement on the agenda for those of you here tonight for item number 12, considering a request for the Amador Construction Company to seek a waiver for street standards. That item will be tabled for tonight. There's some more questions that are being asked by the board that still need to be answered. So if you're here for that, that will be tabled tonight. Of course, if you're here to speak on the matter, you're still free to speak at privilege of the floor and share your thoughts with the board regarding that particular issue or any issue at privilege of the floor. So sorry about that lengthy housekeeping. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. I'll start with town council reports on my left with Councilman Ramichardt.
A couple of items, Mr. Supervisor. 2 weeks ago, I sat in on the Senior Center board meeting, and I just want to say great group of volunteers. Just to note, their annual meeting will be October 9th, where they're going to elect new board members. They've also voted on the architectural work that needs to be done for the expansion that they're doing. So I just wanted to pass that on. Also, I sat in on Park Planning Commission 2 weeks ago, and the main thing that they discussed was the Anderson Dog Park and the public hearing that brought up questions of concern, and they addressed most of those things. They're currently looking at the details of the park, and the project's going to start soon. In reference to parks, again, Oktoberfest will be held at Malwick Park September 27th, 12 to 9 p.m., and fireworks at 8:15 p.m.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rosbowski.
No report tonight, Mr. Supervisor.
Councilman Martin.
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, I attended the meeting of the Small Business and Economic Development Committee last Thursday. It was their first meeting since their summer break. One item I think they're going to be taking up through the fall and winter, and this will be to the highway superintendent's interest as well. They're going to start looking at ways that the town roads through the business park can be improved and maybe realize some efficiencies over there. And that's it.
Councilman Phillips.
No report, Mr. Supervisor.
Excellent. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is a public hearing to hear all those interested to be heard on the matter regarding the establishment of extension to sewer district number 7, which only consists of one parcel at 201 Parkland Avenue in the town of Glenville. We'll open the public meeting now. Anyone wish to be heard on that matter? This is, again, a public hearing to be heard on the extension of Water District 7 to 201 Parkland Avenue. Going once, going twice. hearing is not closed. We'll move to privilege of the floor, which is numbered on the agenda, but it's after the public hearing. We do have a few people signed up. We'll go through the people who have signed up first. If you wish to be heard at privilege of the floor on any matter at all, once we go through the last speaker, just raise your hand. We'll invite you to the podium to address the board on any of the issues that you would like to address the board on. So with that, I'll start with the first person who has signed up, Donna Ringwald.
I have printouts I'd like you to pass to all the board members.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Donna Ringwald. I live at 919 Green Corners Road in West Glenville. I'm here to discuss firearm safety in Glenville, and I just want to first state that I'm not against firearms. I have a pistol permit. I've had one for 30 years. But my concern is firearm safety. I have a neighbor, and that's what we'll get to the map, and I'll explain who is on what property. Decided he was going to shoot a firearm across from my house. His property is only 275 feet wide. My house is 75 feet from the property line, so that's 350 feet. I was upset when he was firing the firearm. This happened in July. My husband spoke with him. He said, well, I'll just tell the officer if you call the police that I'm in the corner, which is legal, but I still feel it's unsafe. He said, send your wife over, I'll teach her how to shoot a gun, blah, blah, blah. I've been down that road. I shot shotguns, rifles, handguns. I have a permit. He called Saturday and left a message on our machine and said he was going to be shooting between 12 and 2. My husband called him back and said, where are you going to be shooting? He said, from the corner. And he said, well, there's nothing we can do, but we're not happy with it. Well, we were gone, we come back. He was shooting from 6 to 8 at night, and I called Glenville. And I had called in the morning because I wanted to talk to somebody. If I was able to call here, I could have talked to an officer and got some questions answered. But because of the UCC, they had to send an officer out. It was Officer Agostino. He was very nice, he was very concerned, but he said there was nothing he could do. He said if he lived where I lived, he would be uncomfortable himself because he's familiar with the property. So at 6:30 or so, I called UCC, and they said that matter was taken care of. I said, no, he's shooting now, and he's across from my house. He's not in the corner. So I said, I need an officer. So a few minutes later, the phone rings, and it was the phone number for the police chief's office, 384-0137. And I answered the phone, and they said, this matter was settled. I said, no, it wasn't. I said, the first officer responded to answer the question. He's now shooting, and he's not shooting where he said he was going to be, which is legal, because it's more than 500 feet from my house. I want an officer now. So Officer Kaiser showed up, but she didn't show up to my house. She showed up to the neighbor's house, which I already addressed with Lieutenant Conley that I don't think that was proper, because what if it wasn't him at that point? Secondly, she's at my house after she talked to him, and she said she showed him the tax map that said he was on his property. I went in my house, I got my tax map, and I showed it to her. She didn't want to look. I wanted to take her around the corner, which is only, my property line is 75 feet from my house. She resisted wanting to go around the house to look there. But I got her to do it. Meanwhile, he's still shooting. And in the meantime, we're having a discussion. There's a large explosion next door. And she goes, he did that for my benefit. And it was so bad that I know of 4 neighbors that have called on this issue. And I just found out one more today that asked us if it was us. They didn't think it was, but they wanted to know if it was us. I said, what are you going to do? I'll just make a note of it in my report. Well, that's unacceptable. She witnessed this explosion, which was huge. I was leaning against my porch, and it threw me forward. So she should have went over there and addressed it and then came back. But she didn't. So what does that tell me? She's telling him that he won. You know, he knows he can get away with it if, in fact, he did it for her benefit, which is what she said. So my complaint is I don't have a problem him in the back shooting where he's legally able to shoot. My concern is the trajectory of the bullet. And everybody I've spoken to, and I haven't slept in 3 or 4 days, I have been on the computer. I have not been given a straight answer by the New York State Police, by DEC, and Glenville about where the bullet's gonna land. Because legally, he can be in the back corner of his property and shoot in the direction of my house, but his physical being is 500 feet away. It doesn't matter where the target is, whether it's a deer, a rabbit, or a bullseye. And this is what I'm being told. So so I'm just concerned. And I just want to go over the map here. If you see where it says 3, 4, and 5, and there's X's, that's my property. My husband and I own 21 acres, and I didn't write anything on the map, so you can make your own notations. The property owner that's shooting off the gun is number 6. Okay? And he's alleging that he's shooting towards 5.3 to the left of your sheet, that big acreage, or where it says there's a number 1 in the corner.
Yep.
He says he's shooting onto that property. I don't know if he has permission from that landowner, but even if he's on his property shooting that way, he's still physically 350 feet from my house, because my house sits 900 feet off the road, his house sits 300 feet off the road, and he's behind his house across from my house, discharging a firearm. And the first 2 times he was discharging it from the middle of his property towards the road, towards his own barn, towards his own house. This time he's alleging he's shooting to the south. I don't know if that's fact, but that's what he told the officer. And she said his tax map said he was 500 feet from his house on his property. And he physically can't be, because 275 and 75 is 350. So, and the neighbors that I know heard the explosion, 6.1 to the left of the sheet. She's a 90-year-old lady with a heart condition, called me up and wanted to know what the explosion was. 3301. You have a question?
I was just gonna ask, so 3, 4, and 5, where's your house on those 3 lots? Is it?
It's to the left of it's right by the border of number 5 and 6.
Okay,
It's 75 feet from that border,
okay,
and it's about 900 feet from the road.
okay,
So it's to the left of our property.
okay.
So 6.1 called, she tried calling the 384-3444 number, and it was disconnected. She didn't know who to call. She called Amsterdam. Amsterdam gave her a number to call, which was 384-3444. So then they said, oh, let me check, and they gave her the new number. She said she put in a call to dispatch. 33 is her daughter. I haven't spoken to her, but she said that she put in a call. 38 wanted to know if it was us, and I said no. 34 wanted to know if it was us, and I said no. And his wife was concerned of the explosion because it shook their house. It was so bad, I thought somebody dropped a bomb over there or detonated a propane tank.
What was it?
We don't know because the officer never went over to check. And the
Where
officer,
did it emanate from?
it emanated from his property line between number 42 and 5.3. It came from over there.
Okay.
So my concern is safety. I think he should be able to shoot a gun over there if it's legal and it's safe. And right now it's not safe, and he's not shooting from the corner. And I put in a swimming pool last year, and by code I had to jump through all these hoops for my fence so nobody gets hurt. Because I just put a body of water on my property, and no one should be able to fall in and drown. So I had to jump through hoops for regulation, for latches, and the hinges have to be self-closing, and the width between the pickets and everything else. And that's to protect somebody else from falling into my pool. And if they were falling in my pool, they would be trespassing. I don't have to trespass to potentially get shot by a bullet that could be being shot towards my house at a target between where he should be and my house. So what I would like to see, and I don't know if it's possible, I would like to see some zoning in effect. Because if he had a berm, if he had a target where he was shooting into and God forbid something happened, the bullet couldn't ricochet over, I think he should be able to shoot his gun. But I think there should be safety measures. I think he should have to apply for a permit just like I did for my pool. I think he should have to take a map such as this, put where his buildings are just like I had to do for my pool, put the projected spot where he wants to put his firing range, his home residential firing range, and then have it inspected, just like I had to get my pool inspected to get my certificate of compliance. And if all that's in place, do I really want to hear the gunshots? No. But if I'm safe, I don't really care. And there should be a time limit, just like with barking dogs. 15 minutes, I can get the dog control guy called to my house. There should be a time limit to how often and long somebody can discharge a firearm. Because there is a 75 decibel sound thing, and that definitely, when he did that explosion, and I don't know what it was higher than 75, because I was, like I said, it threw me from my porch. And my neighbor number down at number 6.1 is a third of a mile from my house. And she's worried about her well, because she's afraid she's not gonna have water now. I don't think anything's gonna happen with her well, but I can't comfort her and tell her nothing's gonna happen to her well because of this explosion.
Excuse me, I'm out of order, but is the other property owner going to get an opportunity to speak here?
Sir, you are out of order. This is privilege of the floor. When we call on you, then you can come up and address the board as well.
Okay.
Privilege of the floor. We do usually have a time limit.
I understand, and I don't wanna go over.
But what I want to say, Donna, you and I, we've talked about a couple of things before. You said a lot of good things here tonight. I want to talk to you in more detail about it, and after I talk with the chief, and can you just, before you leave, make sure?
I'll get you my phone number.
Yeah, I
Yes.
want to make sure I have it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, so we'll go off the list as we talked about before, and then when we get to the end of the people that signed up on this list, then if you raise your hand, you'll be invited to address the board as well. So the next person on the list is Kevin Willing.
Hello, good evening. My name is Kevin Millington. I'm here with two of my colleagues, John Panoski, Lieutenant Colonel Matt LeClaire, and we're trustees at the Empire State Aerosciences Museum just down the street, which I think is your only aviation museum in town. But we just completed our 30th anniversary from August 11th to the 18th. One of the highlights you might have seen was John arranged for a World War II B-17 fly-in, providing ground tours and flights. Matt LeClaire arranged for a group of recruits to spruce up the place. We made considerable improvements. But on Tuesday, August 12th, at a really special event, we unveiled two new anchor exhibits in the museum, which I urge you all to see. And one, a World War I exhibit featuring two World War I aircraft, something you'll never see. And the other gallery, a Luna rover. But the reason I'm here is to at the event, Supervisor Ketzley provided a proclamation which we're really appreciative of. And we had it printed on our annual announcement at our dinner. But I can't thank you enough for the cooperation that you've given us, in particular your staff, Kevin Corcoran and Mike Burns. In preparing for the event, we're a little concerned about the new expanded Rudy Chase Drive and the traffic. Kevin and Mike coordinated this with the county. The very next day, some traffic control measures were put in, and Kevin assures me that he'll, as this road is completed, that more permanent improvements will be done for the safety. But again, thank you very much. We're committed to helping you. We'll be looking forward to, John and I, and maybe a few others will be looking forward to participating in the Oktoberfest event on September 27th at Malibu Park. And we'll probably bring down one of our smaller planes for the kids to hop in. And also, we were brainstorming with the supervisor on perhaps, they don't have a big advertising budget, but to get more people, perhaps we could have a town day at some point. Invite the town leaders here and the public to come over. It's really a tremendous museum if you haven't seen it. But we're very committed to working with you in the town for a series of. If you haven't seen the exhibits, they're really spectacular. In addition, we do all kinds of outreach programs. So just wanted to thank you, Supervisor, for your very generous proclamation of all the support. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I do see John and Lieutenant Colonel Matt LeClaire on the list as well. Do you wish to speak as well, or are you all together as one?
Well, I just want to add to what Kevin has said. like to thank everyone that helped us with our 30th anniversary, and I'd also like to emphasize the fact that we are here to help tourism with the town of Glenville. And in the past season, we've had people from all over, literally all over the world, come to visit us, and a lot from folks from out of the region, from Saratoga, Washington County, south to New York City. So part of our charter and our mission statement does emphasize, along with I Love New York, to enhance tourism within the town of Glenville. And we will support your Oktoberfest here any way we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Lieutenant Colonel?
Good evening, Supervisor, board members, and citizens. I'm here with Kevin and John just to emphasize the museum is a community-based organization, and that begins with the town. As school begins tomorrow and this week, and you go out and about, please remember the museum with regards to school programs, and we'll be happy to support the schools in the town as best we can. There's 3 of us here tonight on the board representing ESAM. Regardless of a board member's rank or title, they are just one person, one vote, and we do operate on a committee style. And we are not just here to ask for assistance, but really to recognize the town's vision, not just for the museum, but what you have, your goals for the town, and we'd like to lend our support as best as possible. Thank you.
And thank you for all that you do in the town. I was at those exhibits. They're extraordinary exhibits. You really should get a chance to get there to see them. And we love having that cultural resource in our town. So thank you for all you do as well. The next person we have, I believe, is Michael Page.
Page.
Sorry.
That's all right. Horrible
I don't know if
handwriting.
it's a D or a G. I'm sorry.
Horrible handwriting on my part. I'm here about item 7A, the electric security fences. I just wanted to thank all y'all for considering us, and also thank the town staff. I'm basically here for any technical questions you might have. Mike Martin's going to handle everything from the perspective of North and Freight Line. But just thank you very much for the help that we've been offered here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if when we take those resolutions up, if there are any questions, I'm sure we'll
Thank you.
on you. Mike?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Michael Martin, Security Manager, Old Dominion Freight Line, Thomasville, North Carolina. In response to Mr. Martin's, Councilman Martin's request whether we were in compliance, I conferred with your building inspector, Mr. Paul Borisenko, and he said after the second changes were made, it was sent to the planning board, and at that point, they were approved at that. We at Old Dominion do recognize it's going to be, we're now neighbors with a lot of people in the community and recognize that, and we'll continue to work with the town and the residents of the industrial area as we move forward.
Thank you. And the last speaker we have signed up anyway is Peter Looker.
Peter Looker, I live at 1965 Amsterdam Road, right across from the, I don't believe it's an industrial area. I believe it's a business and technology area. It's not an industrial area, but I live in a residential area. These are the plans for the first and second set of lights. They did not put on the cover when they changed the plans. They did not put that on the cover. So when it was reviewed, it was not listed as one of the things that they changed. They went ahead and changed it anyhow. I have concerns with basically 4 sections of the town law being violated by Old Dominion that out-of-state corporation that has built that facility over there and has put all those lights up there. The 4 sections of the law that I know of that they violated and continue to violate: 1, glare shall be confined to the property in which it's generated. Now, I've been told glare is subjective. I have a list of 25 people who have signed a petition and given to the town saying the glare is trespassing. It's glare. Now, I don't know, corporation, I believe, is just one person, and so that person may think that it's not. I haven't heard them say it's not glare, but 25 people have signed a petition saying it is glare, okay? The intent was that nearby properties and neighborhoods not be significantly impacted as a result of environmental impact visual effects. It did help me bring my appeal, my tax increase down, so that was a good thing for me. My value has gone down, and so my taxes have gone down. And what the town gets from me is less, thanks to the glare and the stuff that they've done over there. And they probably get tax reduction as well. I don't know about that particular thing. I know that they got some, at least $250,000 worth of subsidy to come into the town. Another section of the town law that they violate, 270-74, off-street loading. Lighting used to illuminate off-street loading shall be configured in a manner so as not to reflect upon adjoining properties or streets. Light sources shall be shielded and projected down. Now, they have 35-foot poles with 6 lights on them. Their plan showed 2 lights that they submitted the first time and the second time, but they have 6 lights 35 feet up at the very far end of their property, lighting up the top of their building and coming across and lighting up my trees 60 feet up. Even with all the leaves this time of year, they're still lighting up my trees and wiping out 2/3 of the stars that I used to be able to see in my yard. Off-street parking, 270-73. A8. All lighting associated with parking areas will be directed into the parking area and away from adjacent properties and public right-of-way. Now, it seems obvious to me. I'm no scientist. I'm the son of an engineer, but I'm no scientist. But it seems obvious to me that if they're lighting the lights 35 feet up over their 30-foot building, come up and light up my trees, it seems obvious to me they're not aimed down and shielded. I mean, is there some question as to that? Have they said they are aimed down and shielded, and those lights are, how are they lighting up my trees, if that's the case? And of course, there's a section of the town law that says there shall be no electric fences, and that's the section you're looking at changing. Now, I don't know how many citizens have come forward and said we need electric fences in this area to protect us. But they have installed that fence. They have a sign up that says 7,000 volt electric fence. Now, and it's inside of their 8-foot with barbed wire on top of it fence. Now, if I was going to climb over that and put a tarp or something over that so I wouldn't get scratched up by the barbed wire fence, it'd be fairly simple once I got to the top of that to jump 2 feet beyond their electric fence. I haven't heard any significant reason other than the reasons they gave, which was that guards don't show up for work, fall asleep, and steal things. Other than those, I haven't heard any reason for why we need electric fences specifically across the street from our house in that particular part of that zone. So they say apparently it hasn't been hooked up. Now, if I installed a pool and somebody said, well, that's illegal, you couldn't put that there, it's like, well, I haven't turned the pump on yet. I mean, it seems like they're violating the law, and now I get the sense that there's a possibility that the town, for this Southern corporation, that doesn't live here, you're going to change the law for them. And there was a reference to Homeland Security and the need for all these things because they're bringing all these things in there. And that's why they need the electric, another reason why they would need the electric fence. Now, if they have that electric fence, yeah, sure, maybe that means they can bring more hazardous chemicals and more explosive things and more whatever into their trucking facility, one of hundreds that they have across the country. I don't think that's going to make the town any safer. I really don't. And I used to be in a volunteer fire company. I don't know how many calls they're gonna get for the alarm going off because the electric fence went off or whatever else. And they say it's safe, just like tasers are safe, and rarely do people die from those things. And maybe there's no documented cases yet of that. But it just seems against the people of the town to stand up for this corporation and change the law for them. Now I have a map here, some lights. The only, to my knowledge, I haven't been, as of 2 months ago, last time I talked to the building inspector, they were implying that this latest map they sent was what the lights were doing, but no, it was their projection of what they thought these lights were doing. But I have, this was done in January, and they did turn off a couple of the lights, at least temporarily, when I tried to appeal to the zoning board of appeals to get them to enforce this, but I've been told I can't do that. I have to hire a lawyer and sue them and the town in order to get this law enforced. But according to their engineers testing, directly across the street from my house and my property, the foot candles were supposed to be 0.08, which is still quite a bit more than a full moon, but that's what their plan said, okay? Now his test found it to be 3 foot candles, which is more than 30 times what their plan said they were going to do. And then his letter in it says, well, we're substantially in compliance. And 30 times I don't consider substantially in compliance. Again, I can still read my paper at night in my bedroom.
Mr. Looker, just to summarize, I have 2 questions. One, the first, the glare violation you asserted, I didn't get a section.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's 270.65.
The second question is in respect to the 3 that you've, the first 3, 270.65, 74, 73. Have you talked to the building inspector about it? And if so, what was his reaction?
I don't know if I specifically talked about those sections of the law, and I don't know what, so I don't remember. It was, the glare was the part that was fairly obvious in the first part we came across.
Okay.
The other parts, I don't know. I did bring it up at the last meeting, and I did bring it up in writing to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay, so if you would allow me time tomorrow to get with Paul on this, the building inspector, on these specific 3 sections, and I'll talk with our town attorney tonight, and then get back to you tomorrow with Paul's reaction to this. I think that would be helpful. That's okay.
That would be helpful, but again, Paul has said numerous times, I'm going to get them to do this, they're going to do this, and then they put a few shades on a few of the lights. And now there's a section of the wall that's about twice the size of this table next to over my wife's side of the bedroom. And now instead of being white, it now has lines on it. So if I'm going to draw on the wall, I can draw evenly. And that's the change that was made. And they turned some of them off at least temporarily when I thought I could, when I applied to the zoning board of appeals that night.
So again, if you just, let me make sure I have your phone number before you leave tonight so I can contact you back before this ends tonight. I'll call you.
I'd be glad to try one more time, but and this part I hadn't seen when I first, last year when they first did this. I didn't see the off-street parking and the off-street loading sections, which are pretty clear. And they said they were going to fix it. And the gentleman talked about that he would work with the town and the residents. Now, I talked to the guys that came up that were supposedly gonna re-aim those things down, and I said, come on over for a cup of coffee and we'll talk about it. When I first called him, he said, yeah, he said, way overboard. I don't know why they're doing that, but his job was to try and aim them down. And apparently, the fixtures that they got, they couldn't aim them down. And why that needs to look like a maximum security prison is beyond me.
So, I just have to, because we're past time on this, let me just talk with our building inspector, and I can reach back out to you tomorrow and let you know what his thoughts. I think the board has a flavor of the complaint.
Okay, and again, I would request that the board not go out of its way to do something to change the law specifically for this corporation when they're not going out of their way to do anything for the citizens. And here's a copy of the map that shows the 30 times what their proposal was.
Thank you very much. I'll bring this up, and before you leave, I'll get your phone number, and we'll talk tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's all we have for people to sign up. And other gentlemen would like to speak to. You're welcome to the podium. We just asked if you're not on the list, just state your name and
Sure, absolutely. Good evening. I hope to meet you all under better circumstances, but I suppose this will do. I'm captain retired. I get to say that since Saturday. Jason Ambrosino. I live at 855 Jean Corners Road. I am the other property owner that was being discussed, and it's important that we get all the facts on the table here. My neighbor's husband had come to the house a previous time to express that his wife was scared of these sounds of guns going off, and expressed that if I had silencers on my weapons, they would be fine. I had to inform him that that would be illegal. I also took him and walked him through the property and showed him where I was in fact 500 feet away. Multiple areas in the property are 500 feet away from any hard structure on their property, which is what is required by the law. In addition to that, I showed him a 20-foot by 12-foot berm of basically old, horse manure and stuff like that's been piled up over the years. That makes for a perfect backstop. That was approximately 150, 200 feet away from my barn, and would be a perfect area to shoot back into if I so chose to do so. Actually, it's probably a little further than that, maybe about 300 feet back from my barn. In addition to that, I showed him the back corner of my lot, which is almost 620 feet from their home. Now, I could be in the right back corner of my property, looking towards the back property line from the road, and basically right on the edge of their property, and still be 530 feet from their home and shoot across my property and be within the law. I think it would be negligent to shoot across somebody's property, especially somebody who doesn't want you shooting to begin with. I understood his wife's fears, and I thought that we could come to an arrangement on that. And I offered to call 24 hours in advance and give them a time that I'd be shooting. I did that. In addition to that, I also called the police department and let them know that I was going to be shooting. Mainly to avoid this situation. Later that evening, I got a call from the neighbor's husband that said, "We don't really care that you called us." He was polite about it. It's always been polite. But if you shoot back there, we're going to notify the police. I said, okay, well, you're kind of wasting their time. Sure enough, the next day came along. I guess there was an officer there in the morning, informed him that we were in compliance. And then later that evening when we were shooting, it was a little later than we originally told them. Apparently it didn't matter anyways. The second officer showed up. She asked me if I'd walk her through where we were shooting the property line. I did so. And we were in compliance. Not only were we in compliance, we were probably about 630 or 640 feet away. So it's not even like we're on the border here. We're plenty far away enough from their home. The officer stressed to me that she was concerned we moved. She saw the shell casings on the ground. We were firing a shotgun, and we changed to a rifle. That's the difference in the sound. That's why the sound changed. With regards to the gigantic explosion that everyone's wondering about, that was tannerite. It was a 5-pound exploding target. They sell them in 1 pound, 3 pounds, 5 pounds. I was approximately 25 yards from it when it detonated. And I've been in big explosions, and this is not what you look like after a mind-blowing explosion that shakes the whole neighborhood. Was it loud? Probably. And I would refrain in the future from doing that just for their convenience. But to propose a gun law or to restrict the firearm use of a property owner on the level that I just heard discussed would be astronomical. That would be probably front page news on the New York Post, because it's never been done in an agricultural and residentially zoned area. I don't think that's what we need here. I think what we need is police officers that come out and walk down there with you and say you're in compliance. And once you show the officer where you're shooting and she or he agrees that you're in compliance, you don't continue to be harassed by your neighbor. That's what I'm asking. For my rights to be protected, to be free from harassment and allowed to enjoy my property rights that I thought were going to be afforded to me without a problem when I bought the house 3 months ago. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard tonight on any matter? Particularly, I know we're tabling the Amador construction waiver for the street tonight, but I know the board is also interested in hearing comments from the residents. So if anyone's here from that development and would like to speak, now's the time. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Don Riggs. I live at Home 12 Arapahoe. And a concern that I haven't heard addressed that worries me is anyone who has walked down Horseman Drive has seen traffic moving at a fairly brisk pace. And I noticed maybe once a year, or maybe more often, a portable radar is put in place which slows down the traffic for the time that it sits there, and then the next day it goes back to the same speed. So it's my contention that Glenville is not able to control the speed on Horseman Drive. How will they control the speed on Tomahawk Trail when people have quite a tempting shortcut to avoid going down the Spring Road and Baldwin Road to get from the Low Oak side to the Indian Hill side? And if somebody has an answer to that, I'd like to hear it, because right now we don't have anybody speeding, but the potential is there for us to have a lot more traffic and a lot faster traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard tonight on any matter or the time? Anyone else wish to be heard? Once, twice. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Mike Cremo. I live at 1042 Tomahawk Trail, and I just wanted to say a few words on the proposed shortening of the roads. I think we're all for the environment. Everybody wants to do what's best for the environment. If the road's going to be smaller and that's less runoff, that's a great thought. But I'll put it out there and say that the reason that Amador wants to do this is money. 4 feet of road, 4 miles through. Do the math. It's going to save them money. It's going to give them a couple more feet frontage. But those roads, as the supervisor had stated in the newspaper, if this plan to join these 2 neighborhoods was always some thought process in the town, and I'd like to see that also, I don't know if it's true or not, but maybe it was also with the thought of 7 or 8 paper streets joining this neighborhood too, not just one street coming in Tomahawk Trail. So maybe the founding fathers also would say, they looked at us today and said, they want to shorten the roads, they want to use 1 road instead of 7 or 8, or Amador can insert their number there of how many paper streets there actually are. They would say you're crazy. Why would you do that? Why would you just have one road leading into the development and make it a shorter road? So my whole thought on the traffic, the studies that were done out on Baldwin and Sacandaga Road, or excuse me, Spring Road in Sacandaga, and Baldwin, or excuse me, Sacandaga. I live there. They were done on, where were the traffic studies on? Spring Road and Sacandaga, and Baldwin and Spring. There is no study done to see what the traffic effect is on Swaggertown and Tomahawk, or any road out of Indian Hills. What is, if there's no roads leading out to the county road, what is the relevance of having a traffic study on the county roads? The study should be done on how it impacts the traffic in our neighborhood. Seems pretty basic that you'd have a traffic study on Swaggertown right near Tomahawk Trail. So that's my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard tonight? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Josh Garrett, and I live at 1 Somerset Lane in Glenville, directly on the edge of the woods that everybody's discussing. I'm going to basically try to tell you in short, the same thing I told the Planning and Zoning Committee at the open forum. One of the things that's disturbed me is it's come to light since that meeting that the Planning and Zoning Board, who are all very polite, professional, don't feel that there's a lot of negative input into this. There was 100 people here at that meeting. None of them had anything positive to say. So where they got that idea, I'm not sure. Couple of things. Environmental impacts. Amdor says, there's no endangered wildlife back there. The semi-endangered wildlife that there is, these bats, they're gonna, not cut down trees while the bats are there. Great, that's a nice effort. The bats are still gonna be gone, whether or not you kill them in the process. Maybe it's a minimum thing. Maybe the other wildlife that's gonna be driven out is a minimum thing. In my opinion, that's how things become endangered. Because everybody's saying, well, there's nothing in there that's endangered, so let's destroy the habitat. More importantly than that, everybody's got water concerns. Is my basement gonna flood? That's not a huge concern for me because I'm one of the few houses in the neighborhood who doesn't have a basement that has had water issues over the years. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. The bigger concern for me is everybody talks about changing the character of the neighborhood. Amador's rebuttal to that, and they are correct in this, is that we're gonna build really nice homes that fit in these neighborhoods. True, and I told the Amador people at the Planning and Zoning Board Committee myself, if I've gotta have a house next door, I'd rather have you build it than somebody else. However, the confusion comes in, what we're talking about with changing the character of the neighborhoods, is right now you have two distinct ones. They wanna join them. I grew up in Rotterdam. Rotterdam is one big, huge, contiguous neighborhood. One of the reasons why I moved to Glenville was to get away from that. That's not to say it's a bad thing, it's just not for everybody. So whether or not these homes are big, large, beautiful homes of the same character rather as the current houses in Indian Hills and Glen Oaks, you're still changing the nature of both of those neighborhoods and the character of both of those neighborhoods by creating two neighborhoods and turning it into one huge one. There's going to be some temporary disruption of the wetlands. There's going to be all these other things, as the other gentleman mentioned, the width of the roads. A number of us, myself included, raised the idea of just don't connect the two neighborhoods. Just dead end these streets, even if it's 50 feet apart. Planning Zoning Board's rebuttal to that was, well, emergency services in the school don't like that idea. My remark to that, too bad. They're living with it now. And somebody said on the zoning board that it's illegal for school buses to go turn around. If that's the case, the school breaks the law every day, because every day when I go to work, I drive down Flag Road to 890, and every day the school bus turns around in the stone quarry at the end of Flag Road. Pulls in, turns around, comes out, and goes back the other way. So either the school buses are already breaking the law, or that law doesn't exist. At the very least, it's not enforced. Amador's already agreed to make cul-de-sacs big enough so the school buses won't turn around, so that's a non-issue. So in any case, you know, being over generous with let's narrow roads, let's let them connect things, let's do all these other things so that they'll bring this project in that nobody wants, other than perhaps the school district that says, yeah, let's have some more kids. And, you know, the emergency services who want, you know, bigger roles and whatnot. I really fail to comprehend why the board, not you guys, the planning board, is so hesitant to recognize the resistance and so hesitant to, and they've been very nice and they've made it very clear, you know, if they own the land and they want to develop it in a way that's legal, we have to let them. Well, as this lady with the gun issue was talking about all the hoops she had to jump through with getting a pool. Those of us that are residents that pay an awful lot of property taxes, and property taxes and school taxes in Glenville are high, have to jump through a tremendous amount of hoops to put up a shed. These people are talking about building 140 houses on 100 and some odd acres, almost 55 of which are federally protected. And from what I've seen, and I've been in a lot of these meetings, and I'm in contact with most of the people that are resistant to the idea, so far the red carpet's been rolled out. It's not been something where anybody's said, you know, if I want to build a shed too close to my house, I'm going to have somebody come over and tell me I got to rip it down. You know, these people want to build 140 houses, and we're saying, oh yeah, you can get a variance. So, I don't know. Those are basically my concerns. I think if this project is going to be done, I think Ondor will build nice houses. I think we need to make them obey the laws and rules that we have in place for building these things. And I think that maybe you guys need to seriously consider saying to them and the school district, we're just not going to join them. We're just going to leave a 20-foot strip of grass, call it a dog park, so that there's not all these traffic concerns, so that there is a pass-through for wildlife, so that a lot of these things that everybody's raising go away. That's all I got.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wish to be heard tonight?
I'd like to speak.
Good evening, I'm Marcia Kulak. Our property butts the northern aspect of the Amador project. As a board, I think all of us would like you to be aware that there is a tremendous amount of genuine concern about the Amador project. You are all aware that both Indian Hills and Glen Oaks suffer from significant water issues. And listening carefully to what the applicants are trying to do there on that property, I think it seems to minimize the sensitivity of that piece of land. Very poor drainage, very high water table, riddled with wetlands. And so there has to be some sort of balance. We recognize that development is development, and two communities are going to be significantly affected by this development, however it comes to pass. I think what we hope that the village will do, and the town of Glenville will do, is recognize that this is a very sensitive area, and hundreds of people who stand to be adversely affected, and that a very thorough investigation be done, including perhaps an environmental impact study, which was negated by a negative seeker. But this negative seeker made it seem so rosy that this particular piece of land that many developers have passed on because of its sensitivity, because of its challenge with drainage, because of its challenge with wetlands. So many developers have passed on it, that perhaps an environmental impact study would be valuable, and not just allow a negative seeker through engineering reports that really don't necessarily address the integrity of the two developments and the existing side of properties and how they may be adversely affected. And I just stress that I think it's important to understand that there are significant concerns, and this project for the town of Glenville is huge. Nobody denies that. But we need you all to take a hard look for us, to be sure that this is actually right for Glenville? And in what capacity is it right? Is it the right capacity for that number of homes, big homes, small homes? Or is it more beneficial to have fewer homes, perhaps not adjoin the two communities, but be sure that you work on our behalf to be certain that this project is not going to have a long-term detrimental effect to the existing neighbors? We really need you to do that for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard tonight? Anyone at all? Mr. Capola, Highway Superintendent.
My name is Tom Capola, Highway Superintendent of the Town of Glenville. And I just want to speak on behalf of the 26-foot road width. Looking at it from my point of view and speaking with the board, and you know, this is a topic that we've got issues on that we need to discuss. But I was actually put forth the 26-foot road width on a maintenance standpoint for plowing and maintenance, for blacktopping, sweeping. As you know, the people of Glen Oaks, your roadways are 30-foot wide. In your development, Anita is 26-foot wide, and Dalton is 26-foot wide. And you know that in that development, when we go to plow, it takes us 4 passes, sometimes 5, to plow that snow off the roads. And you end up with snow piles about this big in your driveways. And, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast with wide roads. So that was my reasoning for putting that forth. If you're in Indian Hills, your roadways are all 30 feet wide. Those are, that was a standard design back then when they built these homes. The standard design now is really a 24-foot road. And looking at the stormwater and things like that from a design point of view, it made sense to me to go with 26-foot road width. We also looked at this for the Belmonte project, which was abandoned on Swagger Town. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but that also was considered in there. And moving forward in the town, I am pushing for all development to be a 26-foot road width. Working with the board, we have our issues that we have to clear up. But just on the, just so I can explain to you why I put that forward, was strictly a maintenance issue and stormwater. So moving forward, 20 years from now, we have to go back in there, we have to pay, or we have to do anything. It's a less cost to the taxpayers to do the maintenance in those developments. These are the reasons why that I put this standard forward. And if anybody wants to call me at my office or anything, I feel free to have you call me or speak to Chris. Chris can get a hold of me. And we always listen to the outcry of the people. You know, it's always good to have the input for these projects. I just want to let you know that's where I come from on this point of view.
Mr. Capola, I just want to be crystal clear about it because I think there's a perception out there that this is driven by the builder. And I need to be sure here publicly, as I understand it, this was something brought to the board and the builder by you.
This was brought by me.
Understanding that it will benefit, no one's saying it will not benefit the builder, it will.
It will benefit the builder, and it will also benefit the town.
Your motivation was?
My motivation was less maintenance, less pavement, less maintenance costs, less stormwater issues that we have now.
I just wanted to publicly make sure that that got stated because there's a perception that it's
correct. Correct. And like I said, I'll be happy to discuss that with anyone if you would like to discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? That's very helpful.
Sir, go ahead, sir.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, they have the 1006 Arapahoe Path. I just like to comment on the road width because I think it's strictly a safety issue. And if we're willing to concede safety for a few pennies, I think that's totally irresponsible. I don't understand if you're talking about 26 feet. If you have a car on both sides of the street and 2 cars trying to pass and people trying to walk, are you going to put sidewalks into this development? I don't think so. And when you're talking about all the traffic that's going through, and if there's a problem with runoff, you should address that by shrinking the size of the development. I don't think we should concede on any aspect of safety, and that's what I think you're doing here. And I think trying to save a few pennies is ridiculous. I also think all of us that live on clay and shale soil understand the problems with water. And this development is not going to help that at all. And we've been struggling with it for years, and I think that needs to be addressed by this board as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else wish to be heard, sir?
Kevin Murdocker, 6 Hillside Drive. A while back at one of the meetings, you guys had said the narrow roads tend to slow down traffic, right? Now, if you connect this, we're concerned with the cut through, right? Who's going to protect us when they come out of this narrow road into our existing developments and then they step on it? I mean, how are you going to protect us? Without, I mean, the ideal thing would be split the neighborhoods so we don't have the people trying to rush through. The road opens up, and 3 houses down the road, my kids are on the road, on a bend. My kids aren't inside kids, they're outside all the time. So, you gotta look at us existing there already, which in our neighborhood there aren't really any stop sign yields. We gotta implement something for us if this goes through. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Anyone else? Sir, ma'am, ladies first. I'm old fashioned still.
I'm Rosemary Lawless. I live at 6 Hillside Court in Glen Oaks. I was here 2 meetings ago, and this room was packed. And they got up and said, and read through this 12-page thing, and all I kept hearing is no significant impact to the neighborhoods. And I listened and listened, and all I could think is that absolutely isn't true. I don't know what the criteria was, but I do know that if there's going to be 140 or 150 houses put in and above my neighborhood, 2 cars per house, that's going to have a significant impact on our roads and our neighborhood. I do know that they're going to, the wildlife is going to have a significant impact if they still build houses up there. Drainage, I'm not so sure about the drainage, but I do know many people gave examples of where there were promises made and the drainage was terrible in their houses and made things worse. Promises made by builders. Safety, smaller roads. I don't see how anybody in their right mind can think that smaller roads are going to help the safety of our development. My grandchildren, if they decide to go up into that development, the roads are smaller, there's snowbanks, they're riding their bikes. That's not, anybody with a common sense knows that's not going to be safe. I think we need our own access road. The 2 developments are doing just fine, and I really would like you and the planning committee to think about if they want to do that development, let them do it. But I think you really have to fight a little harder for us. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Sir, I know you have your hand up. No, I think you're just.
I got something to say. I really wasn't prepared for a speech, but I did want to address the board, and I'm not worried about what's coming. I'm worried what has been, and the lack of leadership in the town to enforce the regulations put forth that everyone is supposed to abide by. And you know, Chris, I talked to you about it. You know about the water coming onto the roadway, and you know that it was due to the fact that it was poor drainage by a community resident who was draining it. I have the pictures to show you the ice. Everybody's seen the ice on the roadway on Heritage Parkway. I'm Steve Mathis, by the way, 26 Heritage Parkway. That was not due to the fact that it bubbled up. It's due to the fact that the town of Glenville failed to inspect and continue to view a permit for installation of a drainage system. Pure and simple. And on top of that, there are other issues that I continue to see on my roadway. If anybody's gone down Heritage Parkway rapidly, if you notice, there's a big black tandem double axle trailer sitting there. Well, I'd like to inform the town that that is illegal in New York State to park any trailer on a public highway without anything towing it. And even in the development, it should not be done. So I think we have to look backwards, enforce the regulations that we have in place, so we can move forward to a bigger project, which is going to continue to have more headaches, more regulations, more problems associated with it. That's all I've got to say.
And Mr. Mathis, I looked into the concerns you expressed last time we spoke. I got to get your phone number before you leave, because I do have to follow up with you, and I did not have that phone number, so.
Okay.
I got a lot of phone numbers to collect before it's over here. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard tonight? Sir. Sir in the blue shirt. I tried a couple of times.
Good evening. My name is Brett Steenberg. I'm the engineer for the applicant, Amador Homes. And I was really just going to listen and let everybody just speak and take notes. But I did want to reiterate one thing. And Amador did not propose the 26-foot wide roads. I can assure you of this because when I originally drew the concepts, I drew them with 30-foot roads and had to go back and revise all the concepts to the narrower roads, which was a little bit of an arduous task. But and the way that transpired very early on in the process, we wanted to meet with Mr. Coppola because we wanted to make sure that the road design, the road layout, this was long before we ever brought the plan to the Planning and Zoning Commission, to the GECC. We wanted to make sure that the staff and that the maintenance of these roads and the design of these roads, as far as the planimetric design and the cul-de-sacs and that were something that the town wanted. And it was actually at that time that we had a long discussion about hammerhead turnarounds and cul-de-sacs, and we went to the school district, and the school district told us absolutely no way will the bus turn around in a hammerhead turnaround. And that's when we worked very closely with Mr. Coppola to come up with a cul-de-sac design that would allow him to be able to plow the cul-de-sac with the minimum number of laps around the cul-de-sac and being able to plow all the snow to the inside. And it was at that time that he expressed his concern to reducing the road width to 26 feet because there already was an application in the town on another project, on Mr. Belmonte's project, to reduce that road width, and that's really the direction he wants to go in for reduced maintenance costs and reduced stormwater. DEC and the New York State Stormwater Design Manual, that's one of their criteria when going through the stormwater design and the runoff reduction on any site design is reduced pavement widths, reduced sidewalks, reduced cul-de-sac size, and that type of stuff. And they task every engineer to go through that when they do their stormwater management and stormwater design, and actually in any stormwater pollution prevention report, including the one that was submitted for this project, you have to discuss how you addressed it, and if you didn't address it, why you didn't address it. Because it's something that the department is looking for from an environmental standpoint. And we actually, I'll be honest with you, the Amadors certainly weren't disappointed to hear that they didn't have to build 30-foot wide roads. But as an engineer, I was actually more excited. I'm not building the roads, but I was more excited because I could check that box and say, yes, we're reducing the pavement width. And it makes it a little bit more of a little bit more feasible with trying to comply with New York State's rigorous stormwater design requirements. And again, the main thing I wanted to express is it wasn't Amador's proposal. It was Mr. Cole's proposal to reduce that. And it's something that we wanted to look at moving forward.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard tonight? Anyone else? So you heard, well, someone just, we don't usually have repeat customers as a privilege before. Let me just see if anyone else wishes to be heard. Ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Suzanne Dorr, 1035 Tomahawk Trail. I'd like to express my negative view of the Amador project. There are a whole host of reasons which the planning committee heard from the residents, of the affected areas, including those in Indian Hills, Glen Oaks, Spring Road, Baldwin Drive. But my main concern, although all the concerns are valid, including environmental concerns and the traffic, I just want to highlight the concerns that I have regarding the soil in that proposed project, as well as the water issues that the residents in the area have. The soil map is pretty clear. I got the information from the town. The soil that's within that proposed area poses serious issues, poses serious limitations, limitations is the word, for the construction of dwellings as well as the construction of roadways. We in Indian Hills, some of our neighbors have perennial water problems, not just in the spring when streams appear out of rock walls and then disappear. Grounds get soggy, but some people have water all year round in terms of the need to pump or the need to watch it. I have not heard or have been able to, I want to make one more point. Some residents have seen changes in the water table where they didn't have water before and now they have water in their sump hole and they're pumping 24/7, I've been told by one of the residents. People who didn't have water before now have flooded or had flooded ground level rooms for no reason at all. We're not talking about the hurricane where some of my neighbors had to be pumped out twice during that period because of the power failure and the failure of the sump pumps in the basement filled with water. I have not been able to access information from the town, or have I heard an adequately detailed explanation of how this proposed development will not negatively impact my property and my neighbor's property and those in the surrounding neighborhoods. We've been told that in some cases that it would actually ameliorate the issues that the neighborhoods are experiencing. But I'm hoping that the town has looked at more detailed information than the cursory review that was given to the public at the planning meeting. I know from my request to the town, I requested a map of the above ground and underground permanent and ephemeral streams in the proposed development, and was told that no such information existed. And we could know where the permanent above ground streams were, but nobody really knew what was lying beneath the soil. And so that's a concern that I have, and I think that it's a prevalent concern among those affected residents. We don't want to see our property, our homes negatively impacted in terms of water. Also, I'd like to point out once again that there are 8 fine homes for sale in the Indian Hills development currently on the market, with 2 proposed to go on the market shortly. We're about 100 houses. That's approximately 10% of our neighborhood is currently up for sale. I asked specifically at the last planning committee meeting regarding the what marketing studies were done. I was told that they were done. That was not sufficient detail for me. I decided not to press the issue, but I certainly hope that the town would press the issue, because if this development does occur, you have expressed through various committee people and that you want it to be successful. But as I said, we already have 8 homes for sale, and they've been on the market. Some of them have been on the market for more than a year. One of them specifically 2 years or more. So those, in addition to the environment and traffic and safety, those are my concerns.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard here tonight? We've not been heard from you yet. Anyone else? Mr. Kramer, I just asked you to save the rebuttal if you wouldn't mind to the next meeting.
Yeah, that was.
Would you save the rebuttal to the next meeting? Is that all right?
Well, just, no.
All right. board will show some leniency, I suppose.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm just confused on a couple of things. I wanted maybe a little clarification on a couple others. I'm pretty sure that Anita is a road that comes in, it's a horseshoe. It's not a main road through Glen Oaks. Okay, coming off Avalon and it's a horseshoe. Dalton Road, I don't believe that is actually an official road in Glen Oaks. I could be wrong, but growing up in Glen Oaks, I was pretty sure that it was never a road in Glen Oaks. I'm confused on, I see it's been tabled, Resolution 12, but it says, resolution to consider a request by Amador Construction Company to seek a waiver. Should that be a resolution by the town of Glenville in conjunction with Amador? Why is this even on here if the applicant is saying that they're not proposing it? That to me just doesn't sound right. And also the condition of the road, they mentioned then Heritage Parkway with the icing. I'm sure the town can verify the mess that Tomahawk Trail is right at the entrance to this proposed development. If you go down there today, there's water seeping up out of the road. You had to have salt trucks come in and bury it in salt to melt the ice. That road is in terrible condition, and that's going to be the main road in here. Is anything going to be done to that road before it goes into the new development? Those were the only things I had.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll close privilege of the floor. And next item on the agenda is supervisor's comments to the board. I'm going to forego those comments tonight because we do have a lengthy budget presentation from our department heads, and this is budget season, and I think it's probably more important to hear from them on the budget than where I've been over the past 2 weeks and I've done. Just two quick items for you, the board. Newsletter items should be due by the end of this month if you have any ideas for the fall newsletter. And tomorrow, Mohawk Honda is having a meeting, or I'm sorry, groundbreaking at 11 a.m. for the new parking lot. For all those Glen Oaks folks leaving, just before you leave, I just want to point out that the board is going to be talking about the road width recommendation at the work session next week, September 10th. I strongly suggest that you come to that. There's not a public privilege of the floor where you can speak and engage the board, but I think you'll get a very good sense of what's on the board's mind and what we're thinking. This isn't an easy one for us, as you can tell. We still have a lot of questions. We're getting a lot of information from our staff and recommendations from the professionals, but I would severely suggest that you come to the work session and listen to what the board deliberates on, and then you'll have a sense of where we're going with it. I just wanted to point that out for next week. We'll also have a budget forum next week too, if you'd like to hear about the budget. Have a good evening tomorrow. So Mohawk Con is having a groundbreaking tomorrow at 11 for the new parking lot to expand so that they can accommodate the inventory. And then the budget forum at the work session next week is the public presentation of the budget issues that we'll be doing at the work session here at 7 o'clock. Those were the only three items I had for that I wanted to just say at the supervisor's comments to the board. So with that, we'll go into item number 7, which is a resolution issuing a negative declaration for seeker. Oh, thank you, sir. I'll be in touch. Negative declaration for seeker regarding the security fences within the research development technology zoning. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, this is a resolution, as you indicated, regarding a negative declaration on the environmental assessment of adopting the change to the zoning ordinance, which would allow electric fencing in our business and industrial zone, our research and development technology zone.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Catalani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, resolution 8, resolution adopting a local law to amend the zoning code to allow for electric fences within certain zones. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is the resolution of the aforementioned seeker assessment that would actually change the zoning to allow for the electric fencing within our research and development technology zone.
I want to take a moment, if we could, just to talk about this a little bit, because I know it's been a little bit contentious from some of the residents. And this, to me, didn't come as a real easy one either. I think through the process, we talked about it at work sessions and with the folks representing Old Dominion, and I think learned more about it. I do want to point out just a few things that are in the resolution that I think are important. First of all, electric fences, as long as they're fully enclosed within the perimeter of fences and walls, is reasonably consistent with both the Town of Glenville Comprehensive Plan, which was written in 1990, and the Industrial Parks Master Plan, which was written in 2007. So we do have some guidance from these plans that allows for us to, at least look at what was the intent and what's consistent with the plans from 20 years ago. They're consistent with that. It's also noted from our planner and from, I think, the boards that looked at this and recommended to us, because we're not the experts in this, but we relied on some recommendations, that the business and technology park, and you're correct, sir, it's not an industrial park any longer, it's a business and technology park, but it is notably homogeneous. It does have warehousing, distribution, those types of things, on insides of fully enclosed perimeter fences and walls, and is compatible with the character of the park. We do have a residential community that borders or neighbors with the park, but it is consistent with the character of the park, and does not directly conflict with the neighboring land use, the residential zoning. So I think that's important as we didn't just say, let's do this because it's already been erected and, well, we might as well. I think we took a serious hard look at this, and it took me some time to come to where I was comfortable with it. And I just wanted to point those 2 points out in the resolution.
And the other thing I'd like to add is something else that should not be commingled here is this issue, which I think is a reasonable amendment to our code to allow for what I see as a reasonable request within our technology and research park, not for the benefit of Old Dominion. This often referred to corporation from outside the state, but these are reasonable attributes of many businesses in this situation. So on that basis, for this park and for current as well as future property owners or tenants in that park, I don't have a problem with it. But I don't want it commingling, at least in my mind, of what have been presented as many enforcement issues. And it's very important that we tighten up the ship here as to what happens with these applicants once they leave this the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This is not acceptable that changes are being made in a site plan that's been already approved. It's just not. That is a contract between this community and the applicant. And if the contract's violated, then in my opinion, a stop work order needs to be issued and the project shut down until it's in compliance. It's that simple. This is not hard stuff. It's not hard stuff in this day and age to have a lighting plan that's in compliance with the lighting plan that's approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's just not hard. And I would expect that not to happen.
I will say that we seem to be having a number of lighting complaints with the new lights.
And I'm not pointing fingers at our enforcement staff there. I understand there's a lot to do out there. It's a difficult job. I've done it. But it's just not acceptable to be changing those plans after they're stamped and approved. It's just not.
Any other questions on or comments on the resolution?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd just like to point out that the electric fence is inside a fully enclosed perimeter fence. Therefore, any law-abiding citizen is not going to be near this electric fence. The kids aren't going to be near this electric fence. It's really not a safety issue, only to somebody who's trying to break into the property. So therefore, I don't see the dangers per se in having this electric fence.
And as it's been pointed out to me anyway, we allowed in the ag districts, which is a lot more assessed with no inside perimeter. It's just out there in the ag district. So, you know, someone walking along could come in contact with that. So with that and no other comments or questions, let's record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pettiboni?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzel?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, Resolution 9, scheduling a public hearing for September 17th to consider a repeal of Chapter 132 of the Town Code, redefining the role of the GECC. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, this is the setting of the public hearing for an item that's been in the work now for several weeks, and that is retasking, so to speak, and refocusing the work of the Conservation Commission, and at the same time allowing for, I think, a more efficient review process of projects as they come through the environmental review.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pettiboni?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzel?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, Resolution 10, scheduling a public hearing for Wednesday, the 17th on the same matter. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll move it.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Moved and second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, this is same action basically as a prior resolution. However, I think this is targeted at the subdivision of land references in the code as well.
So we would have to have separate public hearings even though it's the same
Right,
topic.
right.
Okay. And I know the next resolution deals with that as well. So, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please report the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pettiboni?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzel?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, as we said, is a resolution scheduling yet another public hearing on the same matter. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Moved in second. Any discussion? I think it's already been
Said twice.
discussed. Yes. Please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pettiboni?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzel?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution 12 is tabled, and resolution 13 is approving the extension of extension 11 to sewer district 7. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution would approve extension number 11 to Sewer District number 7, which is applicable only to the property known as 201 Parkland Avenue in the town of Glenville. With acceptance of this resolution approval, said improvement to and extension to the sewer district would be borne by the cost of the developer and no cost to the town.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pettiboni?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzel?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution is add-on 1. This add-on deals with the appointment of a real property appraisal technician. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, Kevin Winchell, who currently holds the position of real property appraisal technician, was on a provisional basis, that provision being he passes civil service required testing, and he's done so. So as of September 4th, 2014, we would like to appoint Mr. Winchell to serve a 26-week probationary period as the real property appraisal technician.
Excellent. Any questions or comments?
He's been doing a very good job.
I can say working in close quarters.
Congratulations.
He's a great employee. He's doing a great job. He's loud, a lot of energy.
wrong with that.
He's doing a phenomenal job, so I'm excited to support this resolution. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pettiboni?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzel?
Yes, resolution passes. So now what we'll do is we'll go to the budget hearings, and then we'll move item 14 under that, and then executive session after that. So this is being done a little differently this year, as has been pointed out to me. I didn't realize that we haven't done it this way in the past, but that's good. We'll start with the assessor, if that's okay. And essentially what we'll ask is if you come to the podium, is if you'll privilege the floor and just present an overview of your budget, and the board and the department heads can have some banter.
Okay, right.
comments.
So this is the first time I've ever had to do this, so I'm gonna try to keep it brief.
We'll go easy.
All right, that's good. I think you guys all have what I submitted.
Yes.
Right, so compared to, overall, I think it's pretty good, it's pretty sound. Compared to last year, it does represent a small increase of about 3%, which is about $4,000. And I think I can make up for that during the year through some cost savings, things that we've talked about in terms of our printing costs and preparation of the tax rolls. You know, all the other things, I mean, we're all doing more with less, and we're all trying to cut things as much as we can and still function. I think with Kevin on board, who's very talented and very loud, a natural born comedian.
Yeah.
You know, he offers a lot to the town and to the assessor's office. He helps me quite a bit. I think with my background, I also am able to offer a lot as well, and that helps us do more with less. But to continue that, we definitely need to make sure we keep our line items for education, technology, and just keeping me and Kevin there, because that's that's part of the equation too. The human resource aspect obviously is the biggest expense in the budget. So really, that's kind of it. There's some additional expenses that weren't there last year, contractual, some public, well, it's not really public data, but there's real estate subscription costs, which I think are going to be necessary, particularly for commercial properties, which we don't have now. Kind of puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage. Residentially, we have access to just about everything. Commercially, coming up with comparable listings and comparable sales, it's kind of tough right now. That's going to be a big thing. Moving forward, as the town continues to grow, I feel like we need to have that in our arsenal. So I have listed that in there as a possible expense for this year coming up. And of course, there's some salary numbers in there as well, which I feel as though they're very fair. I know Kevin's is contractual, mine is more in line with, I think, what's going on in comparable towns within our county. I can share a survey with you if you like, just so you can take it back and deliberate on that.
Bill, can you just talk briefly about your intentions on technology utilization in the department?
Sure. One thing to keep in mind, I haven't really had a whole lot of time with vacations and training classes to get specific, to the penny estimates, but what we'd like to do is we'd like to automate the whole office moving forward. Right now we have physical property record cards that take up the whole wall. They've been there for years, and that's been a good method up to now. I mean, there's other towns that don't have these property record cards because everything they have is in the computer and online. And in order to do that, we really need to have adequate software to do that and programs out there that can help us do that, such as ImageMate, which is a program that's already used by the county, and it's a very nice program. They also offer a component that allows you to use it on an iPad, so we can take it out into the field, which would be very efficient for taking photos, recording data, and then synchronizing it all back to our computer system in the office. That's one example. And then, of course, the commercial data subscriptions was another one. We've already purchased a new digital camera. You may want to think about getting a scanner for the department, just to make it a little bit easier for us to scan documents into the system that we have now. So, there's a lot out there that we can use. I think we're not utilizing everything that we have available to us. The state's RPS system is going to be upgraded in the next 2 years or so. That will end up costing us more money for that, but hopefully it's a major improvement over the way it is now.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Pretty straightforward budget.
It's pretty simple, yeah.
See, it was easy.
And if you have questions, in the meantime, feel free to stop in or call me. I'd be happy to talk about it.
Depending on the year, you have the hardest job in the town.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Sometimes, that's for sure.
Not zoning administration.
But in many ways, you can really affect your own budget, just to raise everyone's assessment.
Yeah, you could try that.
I guess we'll go with, in line with the assessor, let's go with the receiver. It seems handy enough, right?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Good thing you called him, he was whining.
Pat hasn't been out this late since his wedding night.
Yeah, right.
Neither have you.
All right, good evening, everyone. Speaking of doing more with less.
Looks like the same to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry here in the tax office. There's two of us, and we use Sandy. I think we got it budgeted for maybe 140 hours or so this year. So the salaries stay the same, there's no changes there. There is a little tweak in the maintenance on the software with BAS. It seems like that seems to go up a little bit every year. And according to Jason, it looks like it's a kind of systemic thing throughout the town. They seem to be tweaking all the software that they provide for us. So I knocked down the fees for conferences and training, $100. You know, if worse comes to worse, we can take that right out of there and make up the $250 that the department budget is going up in total. So if you have any specific questions regarding my budget, you know, you can ask me now, or if it comes to you later, you know where to find me. But that's pretty much it.
No, I just want to comment that I think you've done a phenomenal job at reducing the cost of running that department. If you look back over the years, 11, 12, and prior, it costs significantly more to collect taxes than it does today. And I think a lot of that has to do with the staffing model, but also the technology that you brought to the town and implemented. So I just congratulations.
It's working, yeah. It's a job that's fun to come to 8 months a year, so. I had to get that in there.
Well put.
In fact, with that new software, it's probably going to get better next year, the 2016 budget.
Yeah, we'll see.
No pressure.
We'll see.
Anything else from
Anything
that?
else for me? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Mr. Controller, are you on tonight, or are you just here to? You're on? Well, Chief said he wanted to go last. Right?
I was trying to be nice.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll go as smoothly as the past couple of days.
They warmed us up.
They warmed us up. We'll start with my own budget, the comptroller's budget. I've got several that I'm responsible for. By and large, it's the same, with the exception of the personal services line, which I think is going to be discussed later on. I put it for a salary adjustment for myself. Going through my budget, the fees for service line, you'll see we're bumping up to $5,000. That is for mandated GASB 45 reporting. We have to do that to make us do it. That $5,000 will pay for 3 years worth, 2014, 2015, 2016. Basically, it's an actuarial study that will project out our post-employment retirement benefits, what we're on the hook for if the sky fell, Glenville caved in, we had no money, and we had to keep paying benefits to people until they died. It's kind of an exercise in futility, but it's a requirement. So again, that's the $5,000. The computer expense line under the comptroller, you see in the notes there, that's our payroll service. We outsource a lot of our payroll. It's worked very well. We've been doing it for a few years now, and for about $7,000, it saves myself and my one assistant plenty of time. By and large, that's my budget. Going down to the auditor's budget, we decreased it slightly when we went out to bid at the start of 2013 after I arrived. We got some decent prices with Bonadio auditing firm. They've done a good job. We're working well with them. The $23,500 that I requested will pay for not just our regular every year annual audit, it will also pay for an audit of either the clerk or the tax collector, which we're on a 3-year cycle. This past year we did the justices audit, They came through with flying colors, as did we actually. So next year we'll do either clerk or tax collector. The year after we'll do the other that we can do. Going down to paying agent and contractual, those are the fees that we pay to fiscal agents when we go out to ban or to bond or something like that. They're also required disclosures, financial disclosures that we have to submit every year. $500, $800 here, just add to those. You'll see Central Services Administration, we've changed that a little bit. It used to be, the account code was 8045, which didn't agree with the state's accounting reporting manual. So we've done this in a couple of places. This is the only time, this is the only account you'll see under my budget, but when the budget gets presented, you'll see we changed some of the account numbers and just moved some things around to be more in line with what the state wants us to do. Also what we've done here is we've discussed with the one employee, this had been part of Jamie's salary when he was director of operations, as well as half of Chris Lander's salary. And as with Jamie's retirement, I've taken on more of the HR, and so Chris, instead of doing 50% into this budget, she's doing about 30% now. Mainly this is her, she does a lot of our web work, our things like that for various departments. And so we're going to charge 30% of her time here based on what she's told us. The only other change from this section, Central Services Administration, we used to have the senior meals in here for some reason, and we've now moved that into the actual senior program section. So that's the very last line, $5,000 has gone away. It's going to show up elsewhere in the budget when we get to the senior. On page 2, central printing, mail, and advertising, just what it says, and same budget last year. We anticipate that around 31 or 32,000. The 1680 line, central data processing, you know, there's a detail at the end of this, 2 pages on, that spells out everything we're looking to do. This is all of our town-wide computer stuff. In 2014, earlier this year, because of Windows XP expiring, we replaced all of the computers. We're now being advised by repeat business systems that our servers are kind of reaching the end of their useful life. We've got 4 servers. The $25,600 should allow us to purchase at least 3, hopefully 4 on state contract and have them installed. Instead of purchasing them out in the open market, we're going to do through state contract, save some money, and then we'll have repeat business do the installation for us. We're still working with repeat to kind of develop the plan, the model. We might be able to consolidate from 4 down to 3 if we can get some virtual servers, but the 25.6, it's a good placeholder number for now. The other numbers there, pretty much standard fare. Our contractual has our email and our firewall and our network maintenance for repeat business. Supplies and materials are kind of inconsequential. The maintenance contract has a lot of the same software programs Pat was talking about, the BAS systems for buildings and for the clerk, things like that. And again, that's all detailed on the last page of this. Fees for service, pretty much the same as last year. The other things, you know, pretty inconsequential. The judgments and claims at the bottom of this page, that's just in case we have any tax certs, like a couple of years ago we did to pay out for Lowe's a little bit. And that's just what that's for.
Jason, just before we leave that page, on that equipment line, 2,000, under central data processing.
Yeah.
We haven't invested in the 4 years previous, 11, 12, 13, 14, the amount that we've invested in, well, I'm sorry, 14 actually. I have budgeted original 10, then I went up to 29. But aside from that, we're budgeting 27, 25 in that area. Prior to the 3,000, 7,000. Not a criticism of the 2015 budget, but more of a criticism of past practices. Has that been underfunded, and has that led to some sort of technology problem?
Yeah. One of the things when I came here is realized that we didn't have a very good equipment replacement schedule. And many of our computers were at the end of their useful life and actually had been for several years. And so one of the things that I wanted to implement was kind of a 4 or 5 year rolling cycle on replacing our PCs. The problem was with Windows XP, which ran about 90% of our machines, and you know, support stopped that and kind of had to go all in 2014. And that's what that amended budget figure is, was the purchase of PCs. We've now replaced all PCs townwide up to date, and we'll get on more of a rolling schedule. And the servers, the same thing, the servers we have are outdated now. We were advised last year that we should replace them this year, but the PCs kind of took precedence. And so now we want to get into more of a rolling schedule and do these things before.
Do you see it coming down in future years?
Well, in 2016, it should come down because we had to go all in 2014 with the computers and 2015 with the servers. So we really shouldn't have much to replace in 16 or 17.
Then you can start getting into that capital replacement, so to speak.
Yeah.
Cycle.
Yeah, so it's a little more even and we don't have the spikes, dips and drops.
Okay, thank you.
On the third page, you've got the debt service for the general fund. Again, pretty much standard fare. The only difference between 15 and 14 is at the very start of 14, we took a communications ban. This is for about $1.1 million, I think, was the original project. For the police communications, we hit our 5-year max on how long we could keep that as a ban. We had to convert it into a bond. When we did that, working with our financial agents, they advised us if we could tighten it up a little bit, instead of going 5 years to about 4.5, that was the maximum efficiency for us and the maximum benefit. So that's why we're going up slightly in our debt payment. It's because we're throwing about 20 grand extra in 2015, 16, 17, and then we're eliminating the 2018 payment altogether. So that's the only difference on debt. Some of the things that I don't have listed here that we're still kind of compiling is our contingency funds. We're working with department heads to see who's going to retire, who we anticipate to retire. In 2014, we budgeted for 10. We budgeted about $370,000 for payouts. We've had, after next week, I think we'll have 7 will have retired. 3 more, one may or may not this year. The other 2 we anticipate will retire next year. Department heads have so far identified 6 people they anticipate will retire next year, although we have several more eligible. So that contingency number, which will be spread across all funds, will come up with a better number there. I'd say low-end estimate, we'd have to budget $225 for payouts next year. That's probably the minimum. It may be more. Employee benefits, we're still working on. Our health insurance costs from our biggest carrier up about 9%. We're still waiting on 2 of the smaller carriers. The health insurance costs we anticipate our net expense will go about $120,000 next year, which virtually wipes out our tax cap. The retirement rates just came out yesterday or today. I lost track of the days. We had a slight decline, not as big as what's being reported in the press. The plans that we have offered our employees over the years are slightly richer than the base plan, so our decrease in retirement rates wasn't quite as big as what's being reported, but it's still every little bit helps. I did not include the revenues in here. Our big revenues, sales tax are flat. The county amount is actually flat for years and years and years. And the Metroplex amount, I think in the first 6 months of this year, we collected $100 more than last year, so we're flat. Our franchise fees, which we get from Time Warner cable subscribers, we get passed through, they have been declining for the past 3 years. They seem to have leveled off, and we should end maybe $5,000 above budget this year, which would be nice. And the other biggie, of course, is mortgage tax revenues, where we're 11 months into the mortgage tax year, and we're going to end at about $525,000, down from $803,000 last year. Our budget was $675,000, and I think we'll probably end up budgeting the supervisor, but probably somewhere in the 5.5 range for next year. It's improvement.
Jason, just give us a quick overview on that. And I believe our debt obligations are down generally.
Yeah, from 2010 till now, we've gone from about $20 million in long-term debt, and now we're closer to 15. We don't really have any debt coming off. We do have some bans. I'll take that back. We will be paying off some bans. Highway truck ban later on this year. Next year, a highway truck ban as well. We paid off a 20-year sewer bond earlier this year. So that pretty much for long-term debt should be it until maybe 2017, when we've got some significant debt coming off. That said, we may want to consider, based on what the departments are telling us, some capital equipment or capital project costs might require us to go out to market in 2015.
Any other questions or comments?
Thanks,
Chief, I think you're up. no charts.
I'd like to take the money that Tommy's gonna save, for not having to pay this much and buy more cars. Maybe we'll get electric cars and we'll hook them up to the fence at Old Dominion and charge them.
What do you sit out in the audience and take that stuff up?
Here's the box, here's Mike.
We know what he's doing in retirement when it finally happens.
Yeah.
Stand up comment.
All right. You got my 3 different budgets: door control, communications, and police in front of you. I'll start with what has become the easiest one as of this year, and that's communications. The only thing that's really left in here are the items that we need to maintain the infrastructure, the various leases. I think everybody's aware, maybe not, but we're working with the town of Rotterdam to try and get rid of our most expensive tower, or move from Lower Waters Road over and place our equipment on Rotterdam's town-owned tower. And there's a pretty substantial upfront cost to do the move, but once it's done, it'll save us almost $1,500 a month forever, really. So Rotterdam gets to use our shelter. We pay the utilities. We will be paying utilities for their equipment as well as ours. But other than that, that's it. So, but not knowing what's going on with that, Mike Cuevas has been working, trying to get that settled with American Tower and with Rotterdam. But I've left that in here for now because we don't know for sure what's going to happen. But
Chief, did you say it's Waters Road or American Tower?
well, the tower owned by American Tower, or Mike, did they change or whatever? It doesn't matter. But
Because we got American Tower at 17.8 and Waters Road at 14.8.
there's 2 Waters Road towers.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's the Ennis property at the top. That's why I said lower. There's upper and lower. So that's a completely different shot.
Okay.
So the rest is just anticipating some non-contract repairs. The largest expense listed is our maintenance contract. And that's pretty much it. Everything else, as far as the bills from the UCC and the county, Jason will be taking care of. So that's communications. DCO is a
We're communications before we leave communications.
Pardon me? Oh,
Before
sorry.
we leave communications. Maybe it would go towards revenue, not revenue, but there was equipment that UCC didn't want. Is there anything that we're going to dispose of?
We would love to. There is talk of Rensselaer County possibly getting away from the county model. I've already spoken with Tom McCabe from Capital Digitronics. If that happens, then there might be some interest by one of the municipalities in our equipment. If that happens, I'll certainly try to push it. But other than that, not right at the moment.
The John Cate at Capital Digitronics.
Pardon me?
John Cate, who used to be.
No, Tom McCabe.
Never mind.
Well, and while we're on the communications, Chief, I just want to explain one thing to the board.
Yep.
And this is a good opportunity to do it. And Jason was with me at the UCC Oversight Committee meeting where we had a vote on the budget for 2015. And one of the glaring issues with it was that their health insurance line, and show me up where I get a little fuzzy on this, their health insurance line showed that their health insurance contracts are more expensive than the contracts that we have, that we're paying for our employees on. And if you know anything about the health insurance market, you know immediately that if the county's experience rated and we're community rated, that likely is not a scenario that makes a lot of sense. That they are 30 to almost 40, I forget the number, 30 what? 38, almost 40. I round up, he's precise. 40% higher than what our health insurance costs are. So doing our due diligence, Jason and I requested many times for a line-by-line disclosure of the employees' health insurance actual costs of their contracts. And we have not gotten them, even though they admit that they have the information readily available. So I abstained from the vote because I believe that we're being overcharged through inflation of the health insurance line dramatically by almost 40%. I think it's unbelievable to me that the county has failed to provide the evidence that we've asked for. We've emailed after the meeting, both of us. I think my next step will be a FOIL because we have absolutely no response back. Not even got your email.
That's amazing.
Nothing. In the debate on this being overcharged, the chairman of the committee, Rory Fluman, said, "What difference does it make? We're saving money anyway." And I thought that was unbelievable. But I just want to explain why the town of Glenville representation was that we abstained. I don't believe that there's accurate billing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on that health insurance line. We're overpaying. We're overpaying. So while we're on UCC, I just wanted to explain that for when that budget number comes in. Sorry, Chief.
You're the boss.
It's on your time.
The dog control, I've been working very closely with the supervisor and trying to get a replacement. Obviously, we've eliminated the full-time position from the budget, so we are going to be going with a part-time model. We just haven't, we're still trying to figure out exactly how that model will appear. There are some complications with civil service if we hire two as compared to one, and so we have a tentative interview scheduled for 9 o'clock tomorrow with someone, and then go from there. Maybe put an ad in the paper, but the 22.5 that I put in there for part-time was just based on a guesstimate of a rate of pay at somewhere around 25 hours a week for the time. Not knowing what the definitive final choice will be. Everything else has pretty much stayed the same, except I just slightly bumped up the new uniforms, because obviously whoever comes in, I need to outfit them. But other than that, everything else is status quo.
Have we confirmed with the APF on the contract for housing loans?
Well, that's an annual thing, so that would be coming up in January. But we're actually doing pretty well with them this year as far as the cost is down a little bit.
And the only other question I had in DCO is the longevity of that van. How's it look? I mean, is that one of the vehicles that?
It's okay. It's about 4 years old? 5.
Not as old as I thought.
It doesn't get used that much.
It doesn't get. But we'll both be here all week. It doesn't get abused like the
I thought you were gonna say it was a dog.
The police cars do. So
you're not ready.
It might smell a little bit, but. All right, police. I'll just start out by talking about the overtime lines. It's always a challenge to try and guesstimate what I call the 1002, the straight time line will be. That's what employees can use to cash in their comp time. So I just go by usage from the past years. I submitted this year's budget with 120 in each line. We are at 100 for each line this year. Just to update you, on page 2 of the memo that you have with the budgets, on the third paragraph down, Jason released his latest figures, which include August. So where we have gone through 53,000 of the 100. It's actually now 65. And in the next paragraph, we're at 51%, 51,000 of the 100 for time and a half. So we're actually, as of this point of the year, we're actually not bad. August is usually a killer month, and the latest figures take that into consideration. So again, there can be some, Chris, we talked about this in the past, there can be some flexibility there. It's very, very difficult to predict, especially in the 1002 line, so. And then, equipment. We have $75,000 in for 2 vehicles. Steve actually has been pretty actively trying to figure out how we can try to manage on purchasing 2 marked units a year, and also still try and get our unmarked vehicles replaced. So what Steve has developed is a system basically of taking vehicles out of service, refurbishing them to a certain point so that they can be used for unmarked, plainclothes use, and try and get a couple more years, a few more years out of them. So that's what we're currently doing with the old 806, the Tahoe. Is going to become a lieutenant's vehicle once we patch a couple of holes in the doors, but they're not bullet holes, so that's good. But we do anticipate we will need 2 marked units. We had talked last year about we kind of needed 3. We agreed we would try and get by with 2, but we have 808 has got 110,000 as it's sitting out there in the parking lot right now. It's feeling its age. That's going to be that will need to be replaced immediately, and then another vehicle later in the year. We're having problems with cars. The Dodges have turned out to be not reliable, and a lot of expenses. I don't know if you guys saw the Ford, but it is out there now. It's all marked up. It looks great. Very roomy vehicle. Looks good so far. We'll see how it handles. We have not heard yet about the Chevy. It's been 8 months, 6 months.
They ordered it beginning of March.
No kidding. And they can't even give us the delivery date. So it's a little frustrating with that, but.
How do the state police like those Tauruses? They seem to have a lot of Tauruses.
What I hear, and I'll let you, is they're tight.
They actually did a statewide survey for their members. The survey consisted of the Taurus, the Charger, and the Caprice. The number 1 vehicle preferred by the troopers on the road was the Charger. It's for obvious reasons. The Charger has the most power, the best handling, but our 2 2012 Chargers have been, as far as I'm concerned, lemons. We've had constant contact with Chrysler Corporate. They've helped us out with some costs that we've had to incur for some major repairs. But our 2000, fingers are crossed, our 2013 Dodge has been fine. The 2 sister cars that we have currently in the fleet were on the same assembly line and are having the same exact problem. So but I believe that we're going to have nothing but good luck and probably a lot of our employees are going to like the SUV.
Well, let's hope that is an isolated 2012 issue with that.
So anyway, so we're looking for 2 marked units again next year, and 1 is absolutely critical. And I'm not sure we should be able to keep it running through the end of the year. It's going to be. We're trying not to put it out too much, but we're down a vehicle. So all right, the rest of them, the rest of the lines coming up are contractual services, the 4,000. There's. Now, just a reminder, as with every year, this is just when we submit this budget, we have a list, description, and we have various items in there. It doesn't necessarily mean that we anticipate that that is what we're exactly going to spend for that particular item. It's what we could spend It's just for us to have an idea. It helps us. We use these as budget worksheets during the year, so when we purchase things, we know where to allocate them and so on. So that's more of a guideline. We look at the total amount and what we spend each year for contractual services, for supplies and materials, and fees for services, and employee expenses. They're just kind of lumped together. Those are just descriptive. The only things that are really new, and I have them marked new for 2015, our high-tech CAD and RMS system, our records management, and our dispatch, in-car dispatch system. Earlier this year, the board passed a resolution authorizing the supervisor to sign an agreement with the City of Albany. We have had the benefit of the CAD system now for years. We were the first ones to get them from Albany under a grant that they are functioning with for Albany, Schenectady, and Rensselaer counties. And it hasn't cost us a penny. So we've really made out pretty well so far because we were kind of the test and the first agency to be put out there. So, but I am anticipating, we still have not received the bill yet, I am anticipating for next year that we will. That represents our share. That was in the agreement that we signed. It was an addendum of fees. And then a net motion, what's called net motion. I explained it in the memo, but it's just, if it works out, all we'll have to pay for are annual licensing fees. And Jeff Cunningham at the UCC is working to try and get the initial expense either reimbursed, so we would have to purchase them up front ourselves and then get reimbursed, or have the county pay for them up front. But what they do is they assist, they help keep the connection between our cars, the computers in the car, and the UCC. Again, supplies and materials, we tweaked a little bit, not much. Fuel is always, again, a crapshoot. And there's really not much else that has changed. Entropy under maintenance contracts, that's the kiosk outside. We have been getting quite a bit of use on it. So it has been working out pretty well.
Has there been many complaints with it, or worked out? Is it being received pretty well?
Well, you know, we have a camera out there and you can watch people come in.
Yeah.
I should really clip them all together and like put it on YouTube, because it's very interesting, because you have people that come in and take their time and they look at the signs and they figure it out and everything works. And then you have the people that come in, you can tell, and the second they walk in, they see the locked door, the hands go up, and you know, the body language is going, so you know this isn't going to end well, and those are the ones that complain. So I don't know what to do. It is what it is at this point. We'll probably have to revisit it in the newsletter again, just to remind people this is what it is. We're still there. We're still reachable. A lot of people succeed in getting through. Jason is working. We are still having problems with the phone system, our old analog system, and the system up here just don't. The secretaries have to basically yell into the phone, just yell your phone number and I'll call you back when we get transfers from the UCC. So other than that, Jim, it's working about as good as we did as much as we could to try to accommodate people that come into the station.
On the utilization of that kiosk, though, does that have a counter, transaction counter or something? I like to track kind of over time, are people using them more or less, you know, kind of where it's all going?
Yeah, we have, we set up a special admin PD, it's called email account. And so we get everything right to the email account. So I don't believe the ladies have been deleting any of the requests, so I can count them.
I'm just curious over time if it becomes more accepted, or if people are like, I'm not going to use that, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, well, the original purpose of it was that if somebody came in after hours, and one of the main reasons people came to our desk was to request records, we wanted something to be there for them to do it, and that's what it can be for. So whether people are coming in looking at it and saying, I'm not going to bother, I'll come back tomorrow, and I don't know. But so that's really it. at Jason and Chris's request, that there's just the last page has some larger expenses there, the generator for the building, air conditioning, the voicemail, just things, FYI, if nothing else. I would be interested in doing them, you know, not because of what's going on in Ferguson, I've been interested in this for some time, but in some form of body-worn camera system, even if we were able to just do a trial version. There's multiple companies, Taser, VView, Verizon, I mean, all different companies that have them. But those are not in the actual budget, but
Kind of there for us to be
Yeah.
aware of. I like the GPS,
oh yeah, I forgot about that too.
Yeah, I like that idea.
maybe higher as well. Any questions or comments? Excellent. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right. I think we're through all of our budget. Legal and clerk are on right now, right? You're not. So then we'll go to the last item before the executive session is just new business, and I'll start on my left, Councilman Ramatar.
Nothing.
Councilwoman Rosbowski.
Nothing new, just everything.
Councilman Martin.
Nothing new.
Councilman Pittavani.
Nothing new.
All right. We are through that. I have nothing to add either. And so we will entertain a motion for executive session.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? An executive session.